Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for this question. Madam Speaker, we've elucidated early on, I think it was last week, about the financial position of FNPF. If I could reiterate, Madam Speaker, the current position. According to the IMF's recent report on the review of the reform progress of the Fiji National Provident Fund, it was said that the FNPF is in a sound actuarial position based on acceptable methodology with assumptions that are fully justified and reasonable, if not indeed a bit conservative, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me highlight some of the key financial achievements for 2017 to emphasize my statement. The net profit increased to $359 million from $331 million in 2016, attributable to better investment returns. By comparison, net profit was $251 million in 2013, which is about 5 years ago. Madam Speaker, the other point also that I'd like to make, of course, is that the profits are not overstated as we found earlier on, for example, in 2001, 4, and other early periods, which was impaired as part of reforms, and also include contributions because of the reforms that have been done. $270 million were credited to members' accounts in 2017, equivalent to 6.35% in interest paid. This compares with $161 million or 5.5% in 2013, which is about 5 years ago. The fund has credited over $1 billion to its members in the last 5 years. Record contributions of $546 million from $480 million in 2016 is a result of better compliance through automation. In 2013, 5 years ago, contributions were $343 million, Madam Speaker. And when we see this, Madam Speaker, it's very critical for us to understand there are still many employers who used to, and in fact we've seen a decrease in that, who still did not pay FNPF, the FNPF contributions. This Parliament has also approved, as we've also made amendments to various laws, where now the penalties are actually quite high. So if companies are not compliant in not paying the FNPF contribution to the members, we've seen not only some companies, what they have used to do was not only contribute their sum, which is 10%, they used to deduct the 8% from the employees, but did not actually pass it on to FNPF. So now the directors can also be held personally liable for that, Madam Speaker, and as a result of that, we've seen greater compliance, which means that there are more funds in the pool of money that can actually be invested, and therefore greater return on investments. The total assets of the fund, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, now stand at $5.7 billion, which is more than sufficient to cover its liabilities of $4.8 billion. What it means, Madam Speaker, if tomorrow everybody who needs to be paid out, who's a member, if they suddenly have to pay that out, we still have enough funds left within the superannuation scheme that we have. The net assets is now $836 million. After applying the solvency requirement of 10%, there is still a surplus of $276 million, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a major improvement from the negative $337 million in 2010 prior to the reforms. The fund's ability to respond to members' requirements, Madam Speaker, are in fact quite significant. For example, during Cyclone Winston, when the members were allowed to withdraw up to $1,000, and some, of course, who had damages could withdraw up to $5,000. A total of $275 million was withdrawn from FNPF after Cyclone Winston. Now, if FNPF was not in a good financial position, they would not have been able to allow these people to withdraw $275 million. We, of course, know that some people did withdraw the funds and went off and watched the Hong Kong Sevens. But the fact of the matter is, Madam Speaker, rather than making it all very bureaucratic, it was allowed, and there was an element of trust that was given to the members and said you could withdraw up to $1,000. Madam Speaker, again, there's been a lot of talk about, I understand some members on the other side have gone to social media about this. The fact of the matter is, Madam Speaker, that the total government bonds as a percentage of FNPF's total assets has come down, Madam Speaker, from 56% in 2010 to 41% in 2017. So therefore, the exposure of FNPF to government is far greatly reduced because of the fact that FNPF now is essentially in nominal terms it may be the same amount, but as far as the actual overall percentage of FNPF's portfolio is concerned, the bond exposure has been reduced from 56% to 41% because FNPF's portfolio actually has grown. The pie of FNPF has grown, and therefore as a percentage of the bond exposure is also decreased commensurately, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the financial position, of course, has been achieved because of the numerous reforms that have been taken place underlying the governance issues and also the long-term sustainability of the fund, Madam Speaker. There's been a number of changes that have taken place, Madam Speaker, includes the strengthening of governance mechanisms based on a modern legal framework, standards and best practices, the establishment of a sustainable pension scheme, which is actuarially tested and certified solvent, the separation of the pension business from the current member fund to eliminate cross-subsidization, better preservation, which is actually 70%, and reduction in withdrawal grounds. There used to be at one stage in FNPF about 24 to 25 grounds for withdrawal. FNPF is not a savings bank where you can go and deposit some money today and withdraw it tomorrow. FNPF is a security when you retire and a pension scheme. And that's how it must be treated. So therefore, the withdrawal mechanisms need to be limited. The competency-based appointment of directors with qualifications prescribed in the legislation with fit and proper test by the RBF. Of course, I know some issues were raised previously that the system was that you need to have 2 reps from employers, 2 reps from employees, and 2 reps from government. But what were the competency skill sets of those people? Now under the Act, they have to have a particular level of competency to actually sit on the board. They need to have financial acumen. They need to have an understanding of the investment market. They need to have the right legal qualifications. So we used to have this largest fund, the largest pool of funds in Fiji, Madam Speaker, that was actually governed by a board of people who may have had absolutely no idea of finance or commercial transactions. This is why we saw some of the shenanigans that actually took place in Natandola and indeed in Momi. So, Madam Speaker, now, under legally speaking, they have to have a particular competency to be able to sit on the board itself, and therefore we can have much better and sound decisions being made. We now, of course, have people who are within the organization, the right level of skill sets. We now have a CEO of FNPF, Chauchi Karoi. Now, he's obviously been in the investment market for a period of time. He's come from Fijian Holdings. He's been within the system for a while. They've also got a competent investment officers who have specialized skill sets in looking at various proposals that do come to FNPF, as opposed to fly-by-the-night people who used to come and actually invest, who are now actually locked up in prisons in New Zealand for basically, commercial fraud. So these are the kind of, things in the past that we need to get rid of. And this is the reason why, Madam Speaker, the international organizations have actually recognized FNPF's position and indeed has given various awards that it has received in the recent past. Thank you.